Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a special guest.
Hey everybody.
Bringing on my fiance, the amazing Miles Bowles, because today we're talking all about how we've been updating our life, how we've been updating all of our systems with our family, with work. Miles has been helping me a lot. And we want to dedicate this podcast to all of our listeners who are who may be feeling stuck right now, who may be feeling like, okay, I'm coming into the end of the year, but
It's January. It's a new year coming up. Everyone sets goals. Let's talk about setting goals.
Yeah. And particularly focusing on, do your goals need updating? Because let me tell you what, mine sure did. And I didn't realize that. And the last few months, I've been feeling just super frustrated, super stuck, super down. I'm like, what the heck's going on? Like, I have so much to be grateful for, like what's really going on. And when we sat and really hashed it out, it was just that my goals were outdated. My habits, my routines, my systems weren't in alignment with what I really wanted. It was an old identity, an old version. And so today we're going to share our 5 tips on how you can update your own goals right now.
Yeah, and I'll add a little bit to that. I think also the goal here is to help set good goals, because that's the other problem I think with it's difficult to set good goals, and so maybe we can help with that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so number 1, we just want to kind of dial into like how to set a proper goal system, right? Number 1 is we want you to get clear on what you actually want, what you really, really want. And one way that I love to do this is literally just journaling out what I want. And if you don't want, an amazing place to start is with what you don't want.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just to write your goals, like to actually sit down and write them out. You have to write them out. I don't think it works to keep them just up in your head, and writing's great for like really working through a thought, because it slows you down, and like as you're writing it out, you really take the time to think through it properly, and so writing helps you think better, and so I really believe in writing your goals out,
writing them down. And because it's one thing, it's like there's so much going on in our heads all the time. We can only actually remember 2 to 3 things at any given moment.
Yeah, well, I mean,
right?
They might change. Like you need a place to actually capture them that you can go back to and look at periodically, and kind of track how they're changing and where things, a big part of what we were talking about is goals going out of date. And the way you could actually know if they're going out of date is to periodically go back and see what your goals were. I mean, I know I've looked at goals that I had written down a long time ago, and it's fun to go back and look at them, because sometimes
You've achieved them.
You either achieved, it gives you something to achieve. That's a good point right there.
Yeah.
If you don't update them, if you don't write them down, then a lot of times it's kind of like a moving goalpost. And so you don't ever give yourself the opportunity to check something off and and take a win.
And have a win, which is so important to keep you motivated. So Miles is saying like write your goals down. And when you write them down, write them in an I want sentence. A lot of people sometimes will focus on what they don't want. I don't want debt. I don't want this job anymore. I don't want this. But according to neurolinguistic programming, we know that the brain doesn't understand negative statements. It just understands debt, this job, that thing we don't want. So if you don't know what you want, write out what you don't want, but then take each one line by line and reframe it into an I want sentence, because we want to put all that energy, all that focus only on what you actually do want.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think I would agree with if you're doing it, if you're staying in like an affirmation, then I would agree with wanting to use positive stuff that you want instead of affirming negative things. But I don't think it's I think it's nice to have something that you want to go away from, like, paint kind of 2 scenarios for yourself. If you, like a goal that you want to go towards and something that you want to go away from. So like, if I maintain the current habits, like, is that going to lead me to a place that I don't want to be? And maybe I'm like, the motivation is to not go down a bad path. Instead of just, I think it works both ways. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be going away from something that may be a bad future that you don't want.
I agree. I think it's good to know that. But again, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Right? All right. So, also, like Miles said, writing it down, putting it somewhere where you can constantly remind yourself, right? Like putting it on your phone. We moved my systems over to Notion, so I take all my goal setting, all my writing, my journaling is all going there. So I'm always checking in, and it's all in one place. But we
it doesn't matter what tool you use. I mean, you for a long time liked paper and pen, and I always kind of made fun of that because I'm very much into my digital systems, but it really is whatever's most convenient for you, where you're going to go back and look at it.
That's true.
Don't, pick something that's not going to get lost and try and keep them in a place where you can find them again.
Exactly. Or post it note on the bathroom mirror.
That is the pitfall with digital systems now is there's so many and there's so many places to put things that you can't lose them.
You just stick with one. Put it all in one place.
Try your best to stick with one, or at least remember where that kind of goal setting stuff is.
Yes. Okay. Step 2 is to define your North Star and use it as a coordination, but not your final destination.
Yeah, let me dive into that a little bit. I like to think about goals as directions, really, instead of like something that is a definitive like end point, because I think that's we're talking about good and bad goals. If you set your goal as like an end point, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, other than when you get there, then it's done. And a lot of the beauty in a goal is it gives you, it's in the process of getting to that goal, not necessarily when you achieve the goal. It's a very short-lived positive feeling. You get to check something off, but I think for the big goals, you should think about them as like a direction or a compass for going where you want to go. For example, you have a goal. Actually, why don't you explain that goal, and then we can kind of bite into it a little bit.
Yeah. So like a big North Star that I have is I have this vision of me in the future. And I am it's my whole day, like how I'm spending my first day. And I wake up, I go to the beach, I jump in my white SUV with Wayne and Chucky and drive to get a green juice, head home to do yoga. And then I go and bake cookies in the kitchen. And I see like 2 to 3 children running around. I see like a nanny or some support person there. And then I see Miles come down the hallway because he smells the healthy cookies. And I know they're like healthy cookies. And I know the kids are running around and playing and everyone's just so happy. And I baked the cookies. And then I go into my office, which has this nautical ocean view. And I sit down at my desk and I have a shelf to my left with all my books stacked on it, and I'm sitting down knowing like I'm recording, like it's audio, it's video, I know it's media that I'm doing, and it's like 2:00 is when I go to work, and I know that I'm only working for like 2 hours and then I'm done for the day. And that has been this vision that I've had since 2018 when I was dream journaling, and like that's what came through. And I've always seen me as like, okay, I'm gonna be this like author and have this like media company, and we're gonna have this big house on the beach. But I'm not there. Like I'm here and like I'm so far from that goal. And I was feeling like frustrated and like, down and like I wasn't good enough, that like I wasn't yet that person. And I had to like step back, and I had this realization where I was like, hold up, who I am right now is good enough. This life is amazing, and I'm so grateful to have it. And I realized that I wasn't accepting who I was right now. And this vision that I've had, my goals have always been way out of reach and way over here. And while that's an amazing vantage point to start moving towards, I was feeling really down that I wasn't yet there. So what we did is we started picking it apart and saying like, okay, like from that big goal, like what are some daily habits and like what are the big pieces there, I guess. And it was time with my family.
Yep. You mentioned being an author,
writing,
filming, just a show,
and doing my media.
Yeah. So like, first off, let me say, I think it's awesome that you have such a clear like visual of what that goal is. I think that's really powerful. That's way more clear than I certainly have on some of the goals that I have. And I think that's a really powerful thing. I think where you got into trouble with that is because it's so clear, you were comparing your life to that goal reality and not allowing yourself to see the little wins and focus on the little things that get you there. Instead, it's so far off and in the future that it was making you depressed because you weren't like there yet. When in reality, like all the little things that you need to focus on, like think about that as a direction that you're headed towards, and then focus on all the little things that get you there, like starting to write more or starting a show, which you've been doing.
Totally.
Or focusing
spending
on
time with family,
Yeah.
more time with family, quality time, cooking my healthy recipes that I have been like so busy on the business side that I haven't really had that family time, had much energy for doing the things that I love that I've seen in that vision. And hey, I'm just realizing this too. It's like I've always felt like split between like content creation, kind of influencer brand work that I do, and then also like coaching, right? And I've always seen like, okay, I need to be creating content for coaching, but it's like I haven't seen the value of just sharing my life, like sharing like our lifestyle, playing with Andara. And I think like I felt so much relief when I just realized like, hey, like who I am right now, I'm going to dive into her and like what she wants, because she's going to eventually become her over there. But I wasn't seeing the value in like where I was now. And so recognizing that, and
you were basically delaying gratification until you got to this really super far away point that's like the end point. It's not and it's not even the end point. That's the other thing. It's like it's one point that you have a really clear visual around, but let's imagine you actually got there. That person at that time and space that gets to that point is going to have a whole new goal set that's like even farther ahead. So it's really just a direction that you're headed in, and the thing to focus on and frame your goal set around is like, what are the little, like now that you have that clear vision, what are the little steps that get me there and that I can actually reasonably achieve and feel good about. And every time I do that, I know I'm headed in that direction. And so for you, again, it's like you're doing a lot of those things, but you weren't allowing yourself to feel good about them.
Exactly.
Because you're like, oh, I'm not there at this
superstar
arbitrary
level
point in time.
Yeah, totally. So anyways, it just made me feel like brought me so back to this present moment where I could just let go of some of that pressure and just really like enjoy. And what that caused us to do was like really shake up our lifestyle. That's when kind of we decided that what I really wanted wasn't to sit up in the office all day and work. I actually wanted to be home with Andara. So we decided to let go of our nanny, who was full time, and so that I could be a stay-at-home mom while still doing, the podcast, and I still have, my RxL company and still do brand partnerships and lifestyle content. But I needed to like kind of make over how I was showing up for work and even the work that I was doing to really fit this new role of what I really want right now, to fit my goals right now. So that's looked like I wanted to start dressing up. I wanted to start sharing links to my makeup and my outfits because I just messaged so many people them. So we're now on LTK. Like we had to like change up our systems. And now I'm like making recipes and posting recipes that I'm making for me and Andara that are healthy. And so I really had to I really revamp my whole like work life, my home life, our family life to now fit who I want to be now. And it's just amazing how much like joy has come back into my life.
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint to one specific thing because I think you made a lot of like changes mentally and then also in your actual day-to-day routine. I think one of the issues that you had before was like you were so focused on growing this business and you thought that the things that would get you there you were focused on the wrong things, and they weren't it was bringing you down because they just weren't in alignment with what you were what your real goal was. And so what you really need to do is kind of sit down and reassess what your goals were and break them into like short-term small goals instead of being like, oh, it's just, this is the one goal that's so far in ahead that I can't feel good until I get there. It's like, that's and it was even recognizing like, hey, the things that I'm doing now, right? Like
cooking for Andara, even filming it and posting it, getting dressed up and like looking cute every day. That was like a big thing, especially when we're home all the time. Like I want to feel good. And so getting like back into like looking cute and feeling good and recording this podcast, those are all things that I'm doing that support like that big North Star that I have. So it was like really good to just like give myself some wins there that just helped me like feel really empowered, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of funny because you have been doing a lot of the things that move you in that direction that you could have easily, like now you are setting them as little micro goals, but they are like, you are going in the right direction. You just didn't define it or frame it in a way that allowed you to feel good about that forward movement because your scope was so big that like it didn't feel like it was that much movement.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you need to like kind of pull in your scope so that it's, you know, you're looking at more manageable goals so that you can feel that movement forward instead of making it, you know, focusing on such a, you know, pulled out perspective that you can't even notice the movement forward.
That's so true. So that brings us to tip number 3 that we have, and that is to make sure that to ask yourself, are your habits in alignment with your direction? So am I writing daily? Am I making recipes? Am I showing up? Like, am I putting in effort to like cook and eat healthy? Am I practicing being on camera? Am I like putting out like this content? Right? Am I building those habits that support me and like my big North Star? Am I building them into habits, into like my daily routine to be heading in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is super simple at the end of the day. It's like you pick, like dream up that beautiful life that you want and get as, you know, like I love how you have so much clarity on that. And then once you've got that clarity and you're really confident that that's where you want to go, then like all that you need to focus on is just what are the little habits that get you there. Like your life is a composite of all the little habits, you know, good or bad. And so then, you know, pull out from that super high level perspective and focus on the little things that you do every day and just, you know, make like, again, I would make a list, and I've done this myself, of all the things that you do on a daily basis and or on a weekly, like all the little habits that are kind of moving you forward and determine, like assess whether those are actually moving you towards that goal that you have or not. And if they're not, then you have to either, you know, decide whether you want to change those habits, or if you don't want to change the habits, then you need to probably
change your goals,
reassess what your goal is to be something more realistic in alignment with your, what it is, like your actual habits and behaviors.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's so important to identify as well, like what habits aren't working, like what habits are moving you further away from that goal too. Like, are there bad habits like watching TV and like drinking or going out or like whatever those are? Like we know what they are, like deep down, like we all know the changes that we need to make. But you know, it was like for us, like, you know, letting go of our nanny, like that was really hard. And she was really reliable and really consistent. And we were really comfortable with the situation that we didn't want to make a change and, you know, figure out, hire someone part-time or like figure things out. So like it, you know, continued on longer. And ultimately though, it was like when we finally had the uncomfortable conversation and made that decision and decided to make that commitment, it just opened up such an entire new world of possibility, especially for me, like being home with Endara, like so much joy, so much play. I love this time that I get with her. And I'm like, wow, I don't know why I waited so long to like do this. Cause I knew deep down, like I wanted to be home with her, but I thought that this like vision of me had to be this like businesswoman and like in her office and working. But really my habit wasn't to be in the office sitting at my desk. What I needed to be doing, my habits were filming content, you know, like filming myself with Endara. And yeah, so.
But that's, I mean, that's why I think it's like super critical to write the stuff down because we're really good at deceiving ourselves and just shifting things around. Like, you know, until you write it down and make yourself accountable to like, am I actually doing the things that move me in the direction of the goal that I think that I have for myself? Like your brain's going to do all this stuff that like just kind of makes you ignore or overlook. And like you can feel it. It doesn't feel good. That's kind of the cue that something's not right. And maybe that's kind of if you feel that feeling, that's when you want to sit down and kind of do that exercise of just writing out your goals and then writing out the things that you're doing that are moving you in that direction, and see if those things are in alignment, or if you're missing, if you're not doing stuff that's moving you there.
Yeah. And I think also like asking, like, who are you doing this for? Is it for you, or do you think you should be doing this? Are you doing it for other people? Because like, if you're doing it for other people, like, it's going to be hard to keep that motivation.
Your goal should be for you. And I think, there's a whole different conversation on motivation and stuff, but like, I'm assuming that you have a clear vision of what you want for your future. And from there, it's pretty easy to start figuring out what you need to do to move yourself in that direction, and the little habits that move you, there. Just again, to give a concrete example, like you hadn't done that in enough time to where you didn't feel good because you were doing stuff that wasn't actually in alignment with what your goals had shifted to be.
Totally. Yeah.
If you wanted to spend more time, like your goals had shifted to, I want to spend more time with Andara and do more content.
In
and
a content
instead
space.
you because your goals were kind of outdated, they were focused on like, oh, I need to grow this, like I need to build all these business backends. And so you'd go and like sit and try and do things that were moving you in that direction, but it wasn't the right
But it
stuff.
wasn't moving.
And I think that's
really
because you hadn't
moving.
sat down in a long enough time and like
Totally
acknowledge that feeling of something doesn't feel good. Let me write it down and like do an audit of like what my goals are.
Totally. So you guys take it from me, like take the pain, take the lesson, and just time to update your goals. Time to just go through the process, write them down, and save yourself like some time. Okay, tip number 4, I want to go into, we have 2 more tips, is what tools and system, now that you know your goal, now that you like know the habits that you can build into your daily routine, what tools and systems can help better support you, make them happen. So for us, we really looked at like our support system with Andara. That's when we decided to let go of our full-time nanny so I could be home with her, because that's really what I wanted, was to really step into really like this special season of having our beautiful toddler. And it also required, where else said like, I really need support. I needed some support with the house. We let go of our house cleaner when we moved into our new house almost a year ago. And I found that like every weekend I'm just like cleaning all the time, and we have dogs who shed, who aren't supposed to. They're supposed to be hypoallergenic. There's freaking dog hair everywhere. And just like all weekend I'm like cleaning. And while sometimes I enjoy cleaning, I don't like deep cleaning almost every day. And so we like traded out and brought in someone like 1 day a week, sometimes 2 days a week, to just come help. And then who's also comfortable watching Andara in case I need to run out and like do some work. So that was a huge shift that not only like saves us money, like a significant financial save, but it's also, it just like better supports on all fronts of life, right?
Yeah, I mean, like that's the situation that we have right now, but I think it's even simpler than that for most people. Like support doesn't have to mean like an actual person that's helping support you. Like it can be a tool, a to-do list, a to-do list app. Here's a different example just to give you some alternatives on what that can mean. Like I think having a kid, they just want to run around and destroy everything and make messes like nonstop. And so one of the things that like that supports you in that is to like make a room and designate that room as like the room where you don't have a whole bunch of stuff that they can destroy. Like make it a little bit more impervious to being just immediately torn apart. And
like
and
a safe room.
It's kind of the safe room where you don't have to be as vigilant to like, or
watch everything,
continuously clean up after her.
You just got a kid-proof
So
space.
like, it can be something like that. And then, a gym example would be like, if your goal is to work out and get healthier, you get a buddy who maybe has a similar goal and that can motivate you to work out or provide accountability to work out.
Or if you have a kid, finding a gym that has daycare.
accountability stuff is a big one, actually.
Huge.
Like, and it can be, even if, I can understand it's maybe difficult to find a buddy. But another kind of hack is if you have a goal and you want to be motivated, or you're finding trouble with being motivated, announce that goal publicly or to your friends or family, and that will definitely give you some, like, I think there's studies on it, give you some more motivation to stick with it and be accountable to it.
That's true.
So support can come in a lot of forms, and so just figure out the hacks and stuff that will help you stick with your goals.
Yeah, and one thing that was huge for me is like a system that I have when I'm feeling like really overwhelmed, like I got a lot going on, and this is really common for women because we're always just juggling so much. But I just like take a notepad and I brain dump out all the things that are on my mind, like all the things that I feel like I need to do this and that and that. I just like write it out in a list. I decide which ones are that I'm doing today, and if ones are moving to later in the week, I schedule it in and I just cross them off one at a time down the list. And that makes me feel so productive, so focused. It really helps me focus my energy to actually get it done. I did it last night when I was like, oh my gosh, I just have so much going on, I can't focus. Write it all down, brain dump it out, and then one by one, get it out of your head.
Yeah,
that is
that's a huge
help.
one. I mean, that's
huge.
Like, there's a great book called Getting Things Done by David Allen, and that if anyone's still interested in that, I highly recommend that book.
Yeah, amazing. I know I started it. I need to finish it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big takeaways is like your brain is not great at holding on to stuff. It doesn't have a sense for prioritization of like the simplest thing, like get toilet paper at the store, occupies the same mental space that like a really important thing like doing your taxes would.
Yeah.
And so you're like, as long as you're trying to hold on to all this stuff in your head, like everything just feels super critical, and
it's
like,
causing stress. It's increasing cortisol levels.
Yeah.
Like
and then you're gonna forget stuff because let's be honest, we're not computers. Our brains aren't designed to like
our brains aren't meant
a bunch
to hold
of
up.
little,
absolutely not.
Trivial information.
So true.
Use tools that are designed for that, like a computer, or I mean, now there's no excuse. There's so many options. If you have an iPhone, Reminders is a great app. There's literally thousands of other great options. And even just a to-do list, like you like to-do lists. We have some kind of shared to-dos on our fridge. Like there's tons of options. So I'm sure everyone's got something that works for them.
Yeah.
Find it and use it.
Totally.
Don't rely on your brain.
No,
it will let you down. And it'll make you stressed. That's the most important thing. Like, even if you're good at it, it's and you don't like forget stuff, it's going to make you more stressed. And so
true.
Just get out of your head so that you're not
stressed.
And
then again, it's like the mere fact of like goes back to step one, just writing it down. Because like little goals for the day are like, oh, I got to go do these Amazon returns. Like write it down.
It's fun.
It's
fun to check stuff off. It makes you feel good. Yeah, it's like it
literally is like
you get a little dopamine kick every time you check something off. And I mean, there's a whole bunch of cognitive science around adding those little rewards to make you to encourage better behavior. Like it works.
Yes.
Do it.
All right, and then our last tip that we have, tip number 5, is to let go of your North Star and reframe your focus on shorter term goals.
Yes, I think we already went over this, but like
now that we know where you're going, like the destination, like the guidance.
Have your biggest goal be like reframe that as your North Star, or maybe even redefine it as your North Star, or the direction that you want, like your life compass. And then your goal should be use that to break out little more achievable goals. Yeah,
chunked down.
That are within reach that you can feel good about. People who go to college and like spend all this time focused on getting a degree. There's a whole bunch of people who finish and like then all of a sudden feel lost. Like they just got their degree and they they think they're going to be feeling super great, but then like it dies off really quick because all of a sudden they're like back at the start again, or like don't know where to go from there.
Totally.
And it's because they like focused all their energy on achieving some goal, and it's really more about like all the little micro steps that get you there. And it's again, that's why I like to think about those big goals as like it's a life compass or a North Star, because then it's not like, oh, when I get there, that's the end. It's like, no, it's just it's just like a coordinate on a map that's moving you, in a direction. Because
Yeah.
once you get there, there's another North Star, and your
Yeah.
goals change. And
It really is like guidance posts on helping you build that character like toward the next goal, like on your way, right? One thing that I love to do in like chunking down like your big goal, your big North Star, and chunking it down into smaller bite size is to have a goal you can accomplish. If you need to get serious momentum, break it down this way. What's one goal you can accomplish in the next 24 hours? A goal in the next 7 days, a goal in the next 30 days. And that's a really great place you can start, where you can start really building momentum and really practice planning. Start writing them down, start building them into your schedule, start creating habits and routines around the goals that you want to really start making some movement on. And that's what we got.
yeah, I'm gonna add one last thing. Like, I think you and I are a little different, because you have like this clear vision of like your future. Like, I'm a little different. I don't have like a super clear vision like that. Like my approach is more, I think about things that I want to accomplish, kind of like a bucket list of things that I want to accomplish or do in my life. And I can break those down into like, time frames in my life. Like, I want to do some running event at some point in my life, and this is kind of the time frame that it would work. And then from there, I can make sure that like I'm doing things that get me closer to that bucket list item. For example, like a pilot, like I want to get my pilot's license at some point. That's not going to just happen. Like, I have to do things that get me there, but I can acknowledge like, okay, that is something I want to do at some point. It's not a priority right now, but I'm going to set it aside as like something that I'll get to later. But in the meantime, what are like little things that can kind of move me towards that thing later on? So if that's helpful, I guess where I'm going with that is if it's helpful to just, if you don't have a super clear vision like Krystal, just write, some bucket list items and work backwards from there.
Yeah, totally. And then the last thing I want to say is the biggest breakthrough and biggest takeaway that I've had when because we went through all this, like I just did all this, like in the last 2 weeks, I've been working through and putting all these notes together on how it's helped me get unstuck, helped me create movement, helped me create progress, get just clear on creating the new systems, updating my goals, and most importantly, really just loving the season of life that I'm in right now. Knowing that I am good enough, knowing that I'm on my way, knowing that I'm fully trusting and surrendering in what the universe has in store for me. And I don't need to achieve all that right now in order to be happy. It's who I'm becoming right now that's going to really shape me when I get to that big North Star.
Yeah. The big goal isn't as exciting as you think. It's the process of getting there that's the fun part. And that's a really important thing. I think everyone says that, and most people know that, but it's good to just say it over and over again and force yourself to believe it, because it really is the truth. It's like, it's the process, not the end goal. The end goal is a short-lived feeling of it's a short-lived feeling. It doesn't. It's over, and then you're on to the next thing. So fall in love with the process.
Amen. All right. Well, our baby's waking up, so we got to jump. Mom and Dad hustling. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Please share this with a friend if you found it helpful and inspiring and want to light up someone's day. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
2023. Let's set some good goals.
Yeah, let's set them. And if you enjoyed this, take a screenshot and then tag us in stories, because we can't wait to hear what your biggest takeaway and what your goals are for the new year.
That would be cool. It'd be cool to see some goals.
Hell yeah. Let's see them. All right. Mwah. Bye.